Hello, welcome to CER, otherwise known as Claims, Evidence, and Reasoning. This presentation is designed for 4th and 5th grade science teachers. It was created by Jana Knight, Saida Chapa, and Jackie Belmares. One thing that you might want to know about CER before we get started is that we don't actually follow claims, evidence, reasoning in order. Students are first given a guiding question, then students collect evidence, make a claim that supports the evidence, and then use scientific reasoning to support both their claim and evidence. So that's one misconception that you might encounter when using CER. Now we're going to watch a short video clip of CER being done in the classroom.
When we make claims, what do we need to follow those claims with?
With evidence from the picture or text and reasoning.
CER, claim, evidence, reasoning. This is making a claim, finding the evidence, giving the reasoning. If they have that understanding, then they're able to construct very well substantiated arguments. Which one of these do you think is most scientific? So your claim is your answer to this question.
I think the most scientific painting is the first row, third column, because you could easily tell what the type of animal is.
In a CER format of discussion, students make a claim, their opinion or observation, then they point out the exact details, something that's directly in the text, in the picture, or in the book, that are evidence for their claim.
I also think that image is the most scientific. That's the one that has the most insects or other more scientific properties.
Typically, they were able to make a claim, give some evidence, but the reasoning is where a lot of them struggle. The reasoning is how logically does this evidence actually support my claim? It's taken a lot of work to push them to say, okay, how do these details specifically support your claim? They're really working on that reasoning component. So remember, your evidence has to come directly from the artwork. But wait a minute, because you need to think about your reasoning. That's going to take a minute to ponder. Why does this evidence support your claim? Why should somebody agree with you? It does take a lot of modeling and a lot of conversation, hearing other students. They are becoming much more cognizant, but it's taken a lot of practice.
I think it is scientific because maybe it was a piece of paper from a journal and it was ripped out. I can say that because it has writing on it.
Making a claim, giving evidence, and then providing reasoning. Getting all those three together, the trifecta of argument, has really been a challenge for them, but they are becoming much more confident at taking their positions and making their case for their opinions.
Okay, so that was a video done by a 5th grade teacher in her classroom, but you might be wondering, how do I get my students started with this? One way that you can do that is by lowering the threshold, taking away from content for just a moment, and let them have an opportunity to focus on just the strategy of CER. We have a short video clip. It's called, I Think My Dad is an Alien. I'm going to show that to you now.
I have evidence that proves my dad's a space alien. He speaks a weird language. He drinks green stuff. He says he's from Albuquerque. I'm not buying it. I mean, just look at him. And one more thing, he has a spaceship. The evidence doesn't lie. My dad's an alien.
The highly advanced Audi A6 named to car and driver's 10 best.
Okay, so now we're going to take a quick look at what are some TEKs that we might want to use CER for. So the first TEK that we're going to look at is 4.9b, which is describe the flow of energy through the food web beginning with the sun and predict how changes in the ecosystem affect food. So you might be thinking, okay, why 4.9b? Well, one of the things you'll notice, we snipped a picture of a question that students might have to answer on that. And one of the really important pieces for this, in order for students to really deeply understand this concept, is not only do they have to understand the concept, but they have to be able to explain it. This is the perfect place where CER can be used to help students explain their thinking on where the flow of energy comes from. Likewise, we're going to look at 5.9b. So 5.9b is describe the flow of energy within a food web, including the roles of the sun, producers, consumers, and decomposers. So right beside there, you'll see we've snipped a question from our one of our released STAR questions. 5.9b follows a similar path. Students need help explaining the flow of energy within a food web. So let's take a further look on what we can do next. So one of the things that we should be thinking about when designing a CER is we want to go to our resources. So one resource that we have is the Lead Forward Field Guides. And to determine a good question, it helps us to look at misconceptions that students have. So we know often that students sometimes have misconceptions in this particular TEK. In this case, we've selected the piece on here where students are not understanding that procedures are photosynthetic and rely on the sun to make their own food. So after we look at the mistake, we then want to move to looking a little bit further. So once we determine the misconception to be addressed, we need to proceed to create, to build, to craft a question that we want our students to explore and then answer with the class. This is a snippet done from STEMscopes that can help you form your guiding questions. From here, this is a form that we recommend to use to help kids and really the whole class to organize their thinking, their results, and their recordings. While you are going through the CER process with the whole group, keep the following in mind. We want to provide sentence stems for conversation, provide thinking time when posting a question, provide time for discussion, and provide time to write down thoughts. So now is the time that we want to provide vetted resources to help students find scientific evidence to help them find the answer to the question. From here, they will use this evidence to help make a claim. First, a little bit more on resources. So these are some resources that you might want to use when you're in the area of life science. But let's say you don't have the right books on campus for that. Guys, you're not limited to just what you have on campus. You can also look at other online resources such as EPIC, Benchmark Universe, and PebbleGo. Or you can provide a QR code. This is really important because we don't want to allow students to freely surf the web for two reasons. One, for safety, but the second, we really want to make sure that we have vetted the resources personally to make sure that the scientific reasoning students are coming to is very solid. Furthermore, we know that some students need a little bit more scaffolding, so you can also provide a graphic organizer to help these students, or an additional QR code to videos that you have already vetted. One resource that is more of a teacher resource to help yourself is the content connection videos from STEMscopes that can help you look at where can I provide students with more evidence to my question. Okay, so so now on this part, we want to gather their information and record their findings. You'll notice the spaces limited for a reason. The information recorded has to be directly tied to the question. Using the example we are working on, you can prompt students with the following questions to help them find the answers they need to support our guiding question. For example, what role does a decomposer play? What is the source of energy for decomposers? What role does the consumer play? What is the source of energy for consumers? What role does a producer play? What is the source of energy for a producer? This is really important in helping scaffold our students to being able to provide the correct evidence. Furthermore, once students have found their evidence, now we're moving on to the reasoning piece. It's important to use a sentence frame for oral practice to have them clarifying their thinking using these sentence stems before they move forward with writing. Sentence stems can be used to check for understanding. When students are in the reasoning portion, they might use sentence frames such as, the blank is a producer because, or, for example, the blank is a decomposer because. You'll also notice they have a graphic organizer to the side, which can further help students through this process. To summarize this stage, this is where students can use sentence stems to cite scientific information that supports their claim. Throughout the presentation, as we discuss CER, you have had the opportunity to hear the different pieces. This is one example from the TEKS we addressed earlier in the presentation. So, let's go through this. When students are first starting out, we want to use the guiding question. From there, students will gather evidence. They'll make their claim that supports the evidence, and then they'll look at reasoning that supports that. When they read it out, they will read their claim, their evidence, and their reasoning. But again, they'll collect it first by their evidence, then their claim, then the reasoning piece. To close the presentation, we want to share some student examples done this year with CER. This is their first written piece with CER done by a 4th grade student during the first 9 weeks when they were exploring conductors and insulators. These are additional student examples done with CER by 4th grade students during the first semester of instruction. The example on the left is on force and motion, while the example on the right was done with forms of energy. There are 2 student examples from the 4th grade during the 4th 9 weeks done with life science. So as you can see on this one, their writing is much more advanced at this point during the year because they've had multiple examples and multiple opportunities to practice CER. We hope you have enjoyed learning CER with us today. We look forward to hearing about the wonderful science explorations you will do with your students this year. Thank you.